Okay then, I'm finished ranking every video game played and movie watched in 2025. Now it's time to wrap it up by ranking every new TV show or TV show season I watched as well. If there was a Splatfest in Splatoon with the theme of movies versus TV shows, which I'm kind of surprised hasn't happened yet, I would certainly pick the latter team. While movies offer usually between an hour and 3 hours of entertainment with great live acting or cool animation and more, I tend to get a whole lot more mileage out of a TV show. After all, instead of watching at least 1 hour of usually a single main plot in a movie, I can watch dozens of different plots in several episodes of a TV show. Whether the show is episodic and every episode is loosely connected, or it tells a huge overarching story with most of the episodes connecting to one another, there's nothing quite like watching every single episode of a TV show. If I had to choose which kind I like, I tend to prefer a mix of both. Basically, the show is mostly episodic, but there are often callbacks or continuations from previous episodes, which still make the show feel connected. Plus, I feel continuity is common for a lot of modern shows, so whenever a callback to a previous episode is made, I can't help but notice it and feel glad knowing that episode was worth watching. Anyways, there's more I could say about the types of shows and which I prefer, but I think we should probably jump into the video's main appeal. In this video, I will be ranking the 15 new TV show or TV show seasons I've seen in 2025 ranked worst to best. Once again, while a handful of new shows I've seen came out in said year, there are a couple that came out before 2025, so this list will be completely random for those watching. Unlike my movie ranking, I didn't watch any live action shows this year. Not because I wasn't interested or didn't want to, watching all these shows was just taking up a lot of time, and I couldn't think of what I could have watched instead. Furthermore, this ranking will be a bit different from my movie ranking. Mainly, there will be a drastic difference in quality versus quantity, namely the latter. The shortest show I watched this year was literally only 3 full episodes, while the longest was complete shows with dozens of full episodes. It's honestly hard for me to explain, so just know the way I rank these shows is completely my opinion, but I'll mainly be focusing on quality first. In addition, I've also decided to not do a tier list this time, since I won't be talking about most of these shows in their full entirety. Plus, and most importantly, keep in mind that just because I rank one season of one show higher than another season of a different show, doesn't mean I feel the entire show is better. Yeah, I'm really stretching to make this as much sense as possible, so hopefully you guys won't take this ranking super seriously since it is just my opinion. Regardless, if you guys enjoy the video or any of the TV shows I talk about, please consider subscribing to the channel. As I've said before, we've been increasing our subscriber count way more than I expected recently, and I promise with your support, I'll work hard to greatly improve the quality of future commentary videos and bring you guys several hours of YouTube entertainment to enjoy. Anyways, I think that's enough said, so without further ado, let's jump right in with every new TV show I watched in 2025 ranked worst to best. Unlike my previous 2025 rankings, I really didn't watch any bad shows this year. Every one I watched was either forgettable at worst and kind of a masterpiece at best. But with that said, one show did have to take the bottom spot, and I have no problem in saying that the weakest one I watched this year was The Bad Guys Breaking In. Making a TV show that explores the bad guys' past and how they learn to actually become good criminals was a really cool idea on paper. In execution though, yeah, there are a lot of issues with it that make the movies far superior. Speaking of which, one instant problem the show has is that it goes against the opening of the second movie, where Miss Tarantula aka Webbs was still a rookie when the dudes were already pros, but I'm willing to let that slide for the potential this show had. As for the other problems, the most obvious one is of course the cheap animation. I get this show is being made by DreamWorks Animation Television, which doesn't have the highest budget, but still, the animation, while not terrible, doesn't feel good to look at. Compared to the animation of the movies, it's way less vibrant and fluid. Maybe if the show was 2D animated instead of 3D, it would look a lot better. With the characters, the bad guys mostly act the same like they do from the movies, but it's hard for me to get invested in them, and I think one of the reasons is because of their new voice actors. I mean, the replacement actors for Wolf, Snake, and Piranha are decent enough, but with Shark and especially Webbs, you can tell it's not the same actor. Like, come on, that is not Awkwafina's voice. The number of episodes this currently single season has is 9, and it was unfortunately hard for me to stay invested in any of them. They do get a bit creative and charming though. Like, episode 5 has Webb's worried the team is gonna kick her out, but the resolution is quite wholesome. Then episode 8 introduces Snake's mother and has the bad guys cleverly get through several tricky obstacles. And the season finale is actually good, for the standards of the show at least. It has the bad guys pulling off multiple heists in one night, and it ends with the revelation of how the bad guys found their true hideout we see in the movies, which I thought was really neat. Plus it ends in a cliffhanger, so that's something. I also enjoyed watching the intro for all 9 episodes, it was kinda cool, and I think the episodes would have been better if they were 11 minutes instead of half an hour. Overall, the bad guys breaking in certainly had a lot of potential, but with the cheap animation, not so exciting plots, and just how boring and uninteresting these episodes were, this small TV show left a lot to be desired. I hate saying that since this is currently my favorite DreamWorks franchise, but yeah, it's the truth. Still, being forgettable is better than being abysmal or completely dull, so there's that. Plus, I would much rather rewatch these 9 episodes than play Team Kirby Clash Deluxe or sit through the live-action Kim Possible movie again. This show isn't a disgrace to the bad guys brand, but it's still something I'll forget about or not rewatch for a very long time. If season 2 ever comes after that cliffhanger, I'll probably still watch it, but unless the quality is a massive improvement, it's still gonna rank last place on this list. Alright, so like with my movie ranking, I apologize if I say one of my problems with any of the shows is simply lack of entertainment. I swear it's not an actual problem with the show or a lazy way of saying I didn't enjoy it. I'm just really struggling coming up with things to say because I didn't find it too memorable. Man, I wish I had taken notes ahead of time. With that said, I actually do think boredom is a general issue with this next show, and it wasn't just me feeling unentertained by it. That show is Season 2 of KIF. So when I watched Season 1 a while ago on Disney+, I was mildly charmed by it. It wasn't the most exciting thing ever, but it was still fun enough to watch, and Season 2 mostly carries that charm. Starting with the good, the show has a couple original musical numbers that are fun to listen to. They're not Phineas and Ferb level, but they're still really creative. The 2D animation, characters, and settings are all still charming as well. And of course, this show has a surprisingly handful of unique premises for its episodes not found in other shows. Whether they sound interesting or not, it's cool to see what the staff can do with such creative ideas. However, with such creative episode plots, it might have come at the cost of why I wasn't a big fan of this season. To be totally honest with you guys, I found Season 2 of KIF to be extremely boring. It wasn't just not feeling entertained, I literally could not feel invested in whatever I was watching. It's hard to explain since boredom can be subjective and incredibly difficult to discuss since, well, it's boring, but I feel like the main factors that contributed to this boredom are simply lack of dialogue and background music, and even just not a lot of interesting things happening on screen. Going over these creative plots, there's one where Kif, Barry, and their whole school stack a bunch of objects on their friend Trevor, voiced by Tom Kenny, who you all know as SpongeBob. Another where Barry tries to throw a party for his cousin whom he knows nothing about, and even the first episode of the season where Kif tries to let out a sneeze. All these premises sound very unique, but I just felt very bored whenever I watched an episode. Every time I was like, okay, those episodes were boring, but I'm sure the next 2 episodes will be more interesting, and they just weren't. Again, I swear it's not just me complaining or refusing to get interested. I genuinely tried to get invested in whatever I was watching, but I just couldn't, and I wish I could clearly explain why. Still, the show tried to be unique, which I do appreciate. There's definitely an occasional funny moment here and there, and for what it's worth, the season finale, though feeling a bit boorish, definitely had some heart in it and was worth watching. You know, it's very ironic how not only the trailer, but also the premiere episode itself hyped up KIF Season 2 as this exciting event, only for the entire thing to feel sluggish in the long run. Not terrible, but the writing just felt very lazy in my mind. Overall, as much as I wanted to enjoy Season 2 of KIF, I just couldn't. Still, it gets to rank higher than the bad guys breaking in because I know way more effort was put into it, and hopefully when Season 3 comes out, I just hope it is way more entertaining and I don't feel like falling asleep. Up next, we have another quick show to talk about, Season 2B of Hamster and Gretel. We're only focusing on the second half of episodes since I already saw the first half in 2024. At least I think I remember watching. Regardless, I do remember watching all the new episodes that aired in 2025, so that's what's going to be focused on. Anyways, like with KIF that I forgot to mention, I don't really see anyone talk about the show online, and it's hard for me to get the general consensus. Still, given that this show was made by one of the two legends behind Phineas and Ferb, it's still bound to be quite enjoyable, and it was. While obviously not on the same level, Hamster and Gretel carries that P&F charm of fun Snibble-style animation, a quirky cast of characters, and catchy songs in basically every episode. And there's a bit of continuity across the season, so that gave me a good reason to watch it all. Unfortunately, not saying any of the writing was lazy, but there were a few episodes that kind of bored me. Don't get me wrong, it was literally just a small number, and the boredom was not on the same level of KIF Season 2, but again, with such creative premises, it might have come at the cost of boredom. At least that's how I saw or remember it. More importantly, it's kind of a bummer that the show had to end on a sudden note. I know Dan Povenmire said he was going to be very busy working on this and the Phineas and Ferb revival, but I didn't think Hamster and Gretel was just going to end because of it. And it's a shame too, because I really enjoyed the final few episodes of the season and know there was more story to tell. With that said, the series finale, while still really good, does give those rushed vibes, like you know the show was suddenly about to end. Still, for what we got, I still enjoyed it. I also think if the rest of the P&F revival is really good, maybe Hamster and Gretel could come back for a third season. Plus, the end of the final episode does tease an even greater evil coming, and there's a rumor that it may actually happen in Season 6 of Phineas and Ferb, so we'll have to wait and see if that ever happens. Overall, despite the rushed ending and a couple of sluggish episodes, I still enjoyed watching more Hamster and Gretel and think everyone should give it a watch for those who haven't. At the very least, even if I just included the final few episodes, I still found it more memorable and entertaining than the bottom two shows. Although, it is a bummer that whenever Dan and or Swampy make a new show, they always go back to Phineas and Ferb, which, don't get me wrong, is extremely iconic, but it just leaves shows like Mile Murphy's Law and Hamster and Gretel under the dust. But hey, at least what we were given was entertaining enough, at least for me. Oh yeah, baby, now it's time to talk about The Loud House. Finally, this is my time, as someone who's been a big fan of this show since the premiere. Before we do get into it though, first I gotta ask, where the heck has this show been? Like, since near the end of Season 6, we've had to wait incredibly long periods of time for new episodes. Heck, the longest and most recent gap we've had to wait for new episodes was a whopping 232 days, which is insane. I'm not an expert in broadcasting, and this all might have something to do with the production of the two latest movies being worked on alongside the main show, but it's still crazy that we've had to wait this long, especially since we've known about the synopses for these episodes for a while. Heck, one of the episodes that came this year, Just Snow With It, was accidentally leaked in November 2024, and it took a whole year for it to air on Nickelodeon in December 2025. On top of all this, the other countries around the world had these episodes aired months earlier than the United States, so I have no idea what's going on with this show's broadcasting. Anyways, I spent this entire segment talking about the broadcasting, but not the show itself. Yeah, it's fine. I mean, with only 12 new episodes in 2025, it's not a whole lot to talk about. But hey, I personally got more entertainment from this one show compared to other shows, so at least The Loud House got to rank a bit higher. The Europe road trip arc was a sweet collection of episodes, but I wish it had a better conclusion. The summer camp arc was really good and should have had at least a couple more episodes, and the 2 episodes we got in December were enjoyable enjoyable to watch as well. Yeah, I wish there was a lot more I could say, but I at least found these episodes to be more memorable than the previous 3 shows. I just hope the many episodes with revealed synopses will air in 2026. We've already gotten at least 14 across the first 2 months of the year, so hopefully that's a good sign. Back to Disney Channel, we have a show quite similar to The Loud House, which got to rank 1 spot higher due to a higher quantity, seasons 4B and 4C of Big City Greens. It's hard to believe how far this show has come since season 1 premiered in 2018, and something tells me we won't be reaching the end anytime soon. My biggest positive with season 4 is definitely the new status quo. While the first 2.5 seasons took place in the titular big city, and the second half of season 3 took place in the country, season 4 combines both settings, which greatly increased the potential for all kinds of episodes. And the show still retains most of its touch. All the characters, both old and new, are still very memorable, and the amount of morals this show is able to teach is quite impressive. Maybe it's a bit too much though. I kinda feel like the series should start dropping the morals and just have fun. Maybe that's just me though. With that said, I'll be honest and admit that there's a few things about this season I wasn't a fan of. I know I just said the show still retains its touch, but when watching each new episode, I felt like there was one little problem after another. For starters, one thing I feel is getting redundant is having the characters go insane. When this happened at the start of the series, it was kinda funny, but now it just feels annoying and repetitive. Like, oh, we gotta have these characters learn something, let's have them go insane until they learn it. It felt like it was happening in every episode, and I just wasn't a fan of it. I also felt like there were a few out-of-character moments. Like in the episode skipped over, Bill tries to win against Cricket at anything, and one of these is a literal wrestling match where Bill goes crazy trying to defeat Cricket. And Bill isn't someone like Homer Simpson who would threaten to strangle one of his children, so I just felt uncomfortable when watching it. Furthermore, I feel there were multiple moments throughout the season that felt either disappointing or underwhelming. First, when Chip Whistler, the series' main antagonist, made his grand return, I was surprised when he was immediately defeated again this season. I thought he was going to remain a recurring antagonist for the rest of the series, so him getting quickly defeated again felt a bit underwhelming. I also wasn't that invested in the climax episode, Chip's Revenge. It was still a really good episode, but compared to Chipocalypse Now, which felt more grand due to nearly all the side characters appearing in the end, Chip's Revenge didn't feel as grand. I get they wanted to do a conflict just between the main hero and villain, but still, I wasn't as invested as I would have hoped, and I'm hoping Chip Whistler will return once again. On top of that, I was really disappointed in the 100th episode. I was expecting it to be a very exciting event, but instead from what I remember, it was sluggish despite what was happening, and I felt bored the entire time. Again, I could be misremembering things, but I feel like if I did really enjoy it, I'd be saying really good stuff about it, and other episodes just didn't feel that interesting, so I don't really have anything to say about them. Overall, despite my critiques, it's still Big City Greens, just a fun show with all kinds of stories to tell, both in the city and the country. I just hope when season 5 and potentially more comes around, it's a bigger improvement in both entertainment and writing. Disney Channel seems to be pushing this show hard, so it looks like we'll be with the Greens for a while. Last thing I want to say, if you've seen my hour-and-a-half long 2025 video game ranking, you'll know that I attended a Too Many Games convention over the summer, during which I got to meet multiple iconic voice actors, and one of them was Zeno Robinson, voice for Remy. It was an honor to meet him, and I still remember how excited I was. Man, that was definitely one of the best days of my life. Alright, so long story short, this next section was originally a lot longer than I thought it would be. At first, I somehow ended up typing 1,400 words in 3.5 pages, but when I tried again to trim a lot of words, it was still over 3 pages, albeit only having 1,200 words. So for this next section, if it feels like I'm going too fast or I'm speaking way too broadly, just know that we would be here a lot longer had I said everything I wanted to say in the first place. With that said, this next show is one I honestly thought was going to rank last place before I watched The Bad Guys Breaking In. That show is Zombies, the Re-Animated Series. I honestly can't believe how much I enjoyed this show based on the live-action Disney Channel original movies. Obviously, it's far from a masterpiece, and it could just be me who feels this way, but yeah, I'm surprised that I liked watching this show. Starting with the animation, despite my mixed first impressions, it kinda grew on me, and there wasn't a moment where it looked unappealing to watch. The computer animation was surprisingly decent and didn't feel cheap. For the characters, they act the same like they do in the movies, and I like how ensemble the cast feels. Plus, I love how they get really creative with the different character pairings, something I wish other shows with large ensemble casts would do. Every episode ranged from forgettable but not terrible to surprisingly quite fun and creative. Here's a small list of a few episodes I enjoyed. I would go over them, but again, we'd be here for a surprisingly longer time. As for the writing, the show was actually pretty well written for the most part. Specifically, the relationship between two characters, those being Eliza and Wyatt, was written surprisingly well. Basically, the two have an unexpected falling out at the end of one episode, and throughout the season in different episodes, their relationship is slowly rebuilt, and it was nice to watch it play out. I always appreciate it when a show gives any kind of continuity. Like with Kif, the show has a couple of original songs that aren't Phineas and Ferb level, but are still fun to listen to, and I gotta give props to every vocalist reprising their role from the movies. And the humor, while subjective, was quite pleasant and never felt annoying or cringy to watch. Honestly, this might sound crazy to say, but between the decent computer animation, continuity, and bits of meta humor, this show was reminding me a lot of Sonic Boom in a way. Again, I know that sounds insane, but when watching both shows, I couldn't help but notice how similar they are. With that said, Sonic Boom definitely beats Zombies in both quality and quantity, but that's a story for another time. It is a bit of a bummer the show was cancelled and only got one season. I mean, it makes sense given it likely got low views and reception, but still, with how creative I found it to be, I would have liked to see more. At the same time though, considering how underwhelming I found Season 2 of Kif to be, it's probably for the best that Zombies did end sooner rather than later before the show suddenly started to feel unpleasant to watch for whatever reason. Overall, I'm just surprised at what an enjoyable guilty pleasure Zombies, the Re-Animated Series was. Maybe in the future, I'll take a bunch of random clips and make a fun out of context video, but for now, I'm personally glad I watched this show, and will probably watch it again down the line. With that said, had I included the entire shows of Hamster and Gretel, The Loud House, and Big City Greens, they would absolutely outrank Zombies by at least a margin. But since we're only focusing on a part of those shows, Zombies gets to rank a bit higher. Anyways, hopefully this segment is a lot shorter than I was hoping for, so let's quickly get through the other shows. From one 3D animated show to another, next we have... Oh, you gotta be kidding me, I gotta talk about Miraculous Ladybug now? It's not that I'm uninterested or don't want to talk about it. I just feel with the show now in season 6, there's just too much going on and it's hard for me to keep track of all that is happening. I feel like I should be enjoying this, and I want to, but I'm just not feeling it and it's hard to explain why. With that said, I'm just gonna go over the main things I liked and didn't like with the first half of season 6 for this segment. First, the most obvious change with the show is the new animation art style based on the Miraculous movie. It was a bit hard for me to get used to at first, but over time I've kinda warmed up to it, and I'm sure I'll like it more with each new episode. I'm glad the show is giving a great amount of attention to its many supporting characters with what a big cast this is. The designs for all the villains are pretty cool, the show was a lot less sufferable without Chloe around, and even though I do get a bit frustrated when it happens since it's more stuff to remember, I like how most episodes end in an ominous cliffhanger, so I know there's more to come. As for what I don't like, I mean, I could probably sit here for hours if I went over everything, but one thing or character in particular that's really pissing me off is Marinette. Like, she is an extremely flawed protagonist, but it heavily feels like she is extra annoying this season. She's finally going out with the boy of her dreams, yet somehow she is even more aggravating despite her embarrassing attempts at confessing her feelings for Adrian during the first 5 seasons of the show. Speaking of whom, he unfortunately feels more like a supporting character than a main character this season. With the name of the show being Tales of Ladybug and Cat Noir, you'd think they would give both protagonists 50-50 screen time, but instead it feels like 90-10 most of the time. There's a lot more I could say, but again, we could be here for a while if I were to say everything. To be honest, and you guys might be able to tell, I actually forgot to list this half of a season as one of the shows I watched this year, hence why in the intro I said 15 shows when it should have been 16. At this point, I'm only watching Miraculous now out of obligation since I watched the show from the beginning. I don't hate the show or think it's bad, otherwise it would rank even lower on this list. I just think it's more of a guilty pleasure or a so bad it's good kind of show. Overall, like I said twice before, there's a lot more to say, but we'd be here much longer if I did. Plus the fact I forgot about this show for this ranking is already embarrassing enough. So I'll just say the first half of Season 6 of Miraculous Ladybug is incredibly subjective, and I think ranking it right here is fair enough. Let's move on to the next show before this section gets way too long. Next on the list, we have a more mature animated series, as well as one that's a bit tricky for me to talk about, Seasons 3 and 4 of Jurassic World Chaos Theory. The reason this show is a bit difficult for me to discuss isn't because it's more mature and dark than most of the shows on this ranking, but also because I've never fully seen any of the Jurassic Park or World movies. I have watched Dead Meat's kill count videos on them, so I do know the plot of the movies, but I've still yet to see them. What can I say? I know for a fact if I saw the scenes of humans getting eaten by dinosaurs as a kid, I definitely would have had nightmares about it. Anyways, as someone who is not a Jurassic Park and World enthusiast, and also want to prevent spoilers for those who haven't watched the show, I'm gonna keep this section as brief as possible. Once again, keep in mind this isn't me feeling lazy or uninterested. I just don't want to drag on this video for too long and should have taken notes ahead of time. Starting with Season 3, this is probably my least favorite season of the show's 4 seasons. I found the pacing to be kinda slow in the first half, but the show still had its tense moments, especially during the second half. Plus, I couldn't find anything that seemed too controversial, so I still liked it. Season 4 on the other hand, this is definitely the most tense and high-stakes season of the show. During the second half, I was on the edge of my seat starting to think not all of the main characters were going to make it out alive. It was probably the most dramatic this and Camp Cretaceous have ever been. I guess if I had to complain about one thing, it's that I did feel the ending to be a bit rushed. For some reason, while the first 3 seasons of Chaos Theory are 10 episodes each, Season 4 is only 9. I find it really weird for it to be just 1 episode less, which might have contributed to the series finale being a bit too quick. Overall, if you're looking for intense dinosaur action, then Jurassic World Chaos Theory has exactly that. I don't know if we'll get another animated series based on the Jurassic movies, but if we don't, I think I'll still be cool with this being the end. And with that, we're officially halfway done with the list. Now, with that said, before we get into the second half, I have a confession to make. You see, the truth is, I'm actually not ranking every new show I watched this year in this video. Yeah, despite what I said in the intro, there is actually one live-action TV show I watched this year, but a part of me didn't want to include it on this ranking. Not only because it's completely different from all the ha-ha funny animated shows on this list, but also because I did not wish to see it at all. What live-action show is this, you may ask? Well, it's the popular Netflix original series, Stranger Things. I had no intention at all to ever watch this show in my life. It's not because of my personal history with live-action media I talked about in my movie ranking. Rather, it's one of the genres Stranger Things has. If we go to the Stranger Things Wikipedia page, you can see that one of the genres for this beloved franchise is horror. Look, I can handle most coming-of-age stories, and maybe sci-fi, mystery, and drama depending on the media, but anything that involves horror, count me out. I've seen bits of horror or violent media as a kid, and those moments absolutely traumatized me. Even now, I still tend to get a little bit antsy whenever I see or think about it. Again, I never wanted to ever see this show, fearing myself with horror elements I could never get out of my brain. And despite the number of times my whole family told me I should watch the show, I immediately declined every single time. But with that said, I did make it a goal starting from here on out to expand my horizons with all kinds of media, which includes ones that I'm not a fan of due to past experiences. Plus, if I finally did watch the show, my family would stop encouraging me to check it out over and over again. So, I finally decided to watch all 5 seasons for the first time this year. And as someone who's not into horror but knows the show is extremely popular on Netflix, what did I think of the entire series in just a few short words? Well, color me impressed. I never thought the show would be this deep in all kinds of elements, and with a huge ensemble cast of great actors and plenty of memorable and iconic moments, there really is no show like it. With that said, if I took time and talked about everything this show had to offer and what I liked and didn't like about it, we'd be here for God who knows how long. At first, I was thinking about doing some sort of lightning round, quickly going through as much as I can in a short period of time, but I'd feel that'd be all over the place and would still take longer than expected. Then I thought instead of doing a brief ranking on all 5 seasons, going over the main things I liked and didn't like, but when I finished that script, once again, it was a lot longer than I was expecting, and we'd be here for an unnecessarily long period of time. So for this segment, I'm just going to show on screen right now how I would rank the seasons from worst to best as a newcomer to the show. 2 rankings, in fact. On the left is how I would rank the seasons from a critic perspective, and on the right is from a fun perspective, basically ignoring what critics or reviews have to say, and I just want to watch the show for fun. I don't know how controversial this is gonna be, especially as a newcomer to the show, so if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments. Or maybe one day in the future, I'll make a brief video discussing my opinions. And yeah, for being my introduction to horror and other mature elements in media and television, I pleasantly enjoyed it. If you're someone who's looking to get into horror but is afraid of doing so, I strongly recommend that Stranger Things is a great show to start with. Oh, and in case any of you guys are curious, Murray is my favorite character. Brett Gelman did an incredible acting job. He is so funny, and letting him become a main character in the second half of season 3 and onward was probably the best decision the Duffer Brothers ever made, at least compared to the fandom's reception towards season 5. God, he's so funny, I'm laughing about it right now. And you know what? If I actually did plan to watch this show at the start of the year and had to place it somewhere on this ranking, I'd give it third place. Yeah, even if I was obsessed with everything the series has to offer, I don't think it or any other popular show would outrank the top 2 shows on this list. You'll see what they are when we get to them. Overall, Stranger Things is an 80s nostalgia hit that lasted for a decade and is beloved by so many people around the world. Even though horror is one of my least favorite genres in media, I still found the show to be very enjoyable and impressive. Also, and I promise this will be the last time I say it in the video, but if it ever feels like these segments are either not specific enough or feel like they're going by way too quickly, I swear it's only because I don't want to make this video way longer than I feel like it needs to be. And I want to save plenty of time for you guys watching and myself as I'm making the video. I just wanted to get that out there because I am starting to feel like this video is feeling a bit sloppy, despite hopefully being shorter than my movie ranking. Anyways, with that intermission done, let's move on with the second half of the ranking. Kicking off the top half of the list, we have the second shortest show to talk about, Dream Productions, the Disney Plus series that takes place in the world of Pixar's Inside Out. Because this show is only 4 half-hour episodes, I think it makes perfect sense to keep this segment brief and just talk about the main highlights, so that's exactly what I'll do. For starters, Pixar once again shows how incredible they are with their 3D animation, and this short series has the exact same style as the movies. Speaking of which, it's interesting how this movie takes place in between both movies, and I don't mind that the core 5 emotions have minor roles. It's at least better than them not appearing or getting mentioned at all. The way the show is set up and portrayed like some sort of documentary interview is really unique, the new characters were charming and fun, and overall, this series did a great job at expanding the world of Inside Out, more specifically, the place in Riley's mind where dreams are made, a memorable location from the first Inside Out. Yeah, I really don't know what else to say about this short series without getting too deep, so I'll just say if you enjoyed the movies, you'll likely enjoy this show too. I think that's enough said, so let's move on. Up next, we have the only anime I watched on this ranking, Pokemon Horizon Season 2, The Search for Laqua. Ever since Ash left the Pokemon anime, things have definitely been different. Still, even without him, I'd still say the show still retains its Pokemon charm. The colors are bright and pretty to look at, the characters are still memorable, and of course, the titular Pokemon are still the main focus. Although, and I don't know if others feel this way, one personal issue I have with this series are the battles. Not only do I feel there is a complete lack of battles, but the battles we do get just aren't that interesting to me. Compared to most battles in the previous series, which always feel action-packed and memorable, most of the battles in this series don't feel that exciting to me. I get Horizons is more about exploring the world instead of becoming the strongest trainer, but it might have come at the cost of the episodes not feeling that invested, at least in my opinion. I read a comment in a YouTube video that says Pokemon Horizons doesn't feel like a Pokemon anime, rather it's a typical anime with Pokemon in it. And yeah, I think that quote perfectly describes this era of the anime, for better or worse. But with that said, it's still an anime based on one of my favorite video game franchises. It's still pretty to look at, the characters are fun, and there are a couple of memorable moments in battles. The ones that stuck out for me are the battle against Liko and Roy in the end of Part 2, and the battle near the end against the Shiny Zygarde. Overall, even if the battles aren't too memorable, Pokemon Horizon still feels like a Pokemon anime. It has an engaging story, and more that make it worth watching. If you're a Pokemon fan who stopped watching the anime because Ash left, I strongly recommend you give Horizons a chance. Who knows, you'll probably enjoy it way more than I did. Aw man, what was Disney thinking when canceling Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur? I understand canceling Haley's on it because I found it to be extremely forgettable and underwhelming, despite the overarching story and romance plot. And the same goes for Zombies the Reanimated series, despite how much I personally enjoyed it. But this show? Really? I'm just gonna come out and say this is by far the most underrated show on this ranking. I deeply regret not watching it when it premiered back in 2023. And there is so much that makes this show the bomb. We're only focusing on the second half of Season 2, but pretty much everything I say applies to the whole series. First, I'm obsessed with the animation. It's like I'm watching a moving comic book, and it's so unique compared to most other shows with 2D animation. I know The Loud House uses similar animation, but Moon Girl takes it to the next level. I especially love the little speech bubbles and icons that pop up in nearly every episode when the characters are talking. It makes the show so much more charming. Every character feels very memorable, whether it's how funny or quirky they can be, or the heart-to-hearts they have with other characters, you just get so quickly attached to them. And the voice cast is incredible too, they all bring so much life into the characters. The action scenes and unique supervillains are so cool, each episode is creative in its own way, the soundtrack is heavily underrated and might be on par with Phineas and Ferb songs. Yeah, there is so much about this show that gives it that Moon Girl magic. I haven't even mentioned the representation and story elements. With that said, like Hamster and Gretel, the final episode, while still really good, does feel rushed, like the show was suddenly cancelled. That's obviously not the fault of the crew behind the series, but yeah, there were definitely loose ends that I wish were touched upon. Overall, despite being only half a season, I still greatly enjoyed Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur. This is definitely my pick for the most underrated show on this ranking. If you're someone who hasn't checked it out yet, I highly recommend doing so on Disney+. I mean, if you're not going to watch Zombies the Reanimated series, watch this instead. While a majority of this ranking consists of mainstream animated shows, I'm throwing in an indie show, one you guys may have never even heard of. That show is Disventure Camp. We'll be looking at the entire franchise, with the exception of Season 3, Disventure Camp All-Stars, and Season 1 of Tom Jake. The former is considered to be infamous among the fandom, so it's probably better that we don't talk about it. Anyways, most of you, even Total Drama fans, have probably not even heard of this show, and I honestly can't blame you. For some reason, this show, and to an extent, the Mexico-based indie studio behind the show, Odd Nation Cartoons, don't have their own Wikipedia article. I only just found out about it because I kept seeing glimpses of it on YouTube. At first, I thought it was a cheaper Total Drama with not as good animation, but after watching a few episodes, I quickly warmed up to it and felt the need to watch the entire show. There's just something about these reality show parodies that always have me coming back for more, even if I don't like it. With that said, I'm just gonna briefly provide my thoughts on the aforementioned seasons and not get too deep into them. Just know that if you're a fan of Total Drama, you'll likely enjoy this too. Season 1 is honestly quite impressive for being the first season of the show. Every character is unique from one another, the friendships and conflicts are all deeply interesting, and it's hard to predict what dramatic thing is gonna happen next. Season 2 I thought was even better. I feel like it made the best use of every character, and there aren't any significant flaws. The only issue is how the episodes feel noticeably shorter in runtime, probably due to this being a remake season with a low budget, but otherwise, it's amazing and definitely worth watching. Season 4, aka Carnival of Chaos on the other hand, is where things get a bit controversial. There's all kinds of different opinions in the Disventure Camp fandom, and I feel like the best way I can describe it is that we can all never agree on something. My personal take on Season 4 is that it was looking real promising in the first half, on the same level as Seasons 1 and 2, but once the merge hit and we were in the second half, it felt like there was one problem after another, leaving the whole season to be a mixed bag in the end. I still found it mostly enjoyable, but yeah, it definitely has its flaws. The only thing I will say about this season is that Logan gets way too much hate. Yeah, his gameplay is certainly questionable to say the least, but I feel like the hatred is getting way too out of hand, and he is far from being this season's only major problem. I actually quite enjoy him despite what any haters have to say. As for the two spin-offs, they were great too. Staff Stories was a fun collection of episodes that explored more of the titular staff of Disventure Camp, and Tom Jake Season 2 was an emotional journey that was a huge step up from Season 1. It's kinda crazy how this indie studio gave us a slice of life spin-off that shows the contestants in a daily life setting before Total Drama did. No, Dramarama doesn't count, the contestants are toddlers and not young adults. Overall, Disventure Camp was a fun and dramatic show as a unique spin on reality TV. If you're a fan of Survivor, Total Drama, or are just looking for any new show to watch, I highly recommend checking it out on Odd Nation Cartoons' YouTube channel, and start watching it yourself. You may not get into it at first, but over time, I'm sure you will be. Also, keep in mind this show is more mature in which the characters are all different ages, some serious topics are discussed, and there is always some sort of inoffensive swearing. Just wanted to let you know. Also, there is a boatload of LGBTQ-ness to go around. Always keep that in mind in case you're caught off guard. And if you're rich, you can even purchase greetings and be given your own personal messages from the contestants. You can learn more about it on Odd Nation Cartoons Patreon. Once again, highly recommend checking them out. From one indie show to another, up next we have the internet phenomenon I'm sure many of you know about, The Amazing Digital Circus, specifically episodes 5, 6, and 7. It's hard to believe how much this show boomed in popularity back when it premiered in October 2023. Now it, as well as Glitch Productions, stand at the top of all things indie animation. Although, at the time of me writing this, there has been a bit of drama, and not the good kind, involving major fan complaints and the creator Gooseworks, but I probably shouldn't make that the discussion of this segment, or get involved with it at all. Anyways, since this is the shortest show I alluded to in the intro with only 3 full-length episodes, I'm just gonna quickly summarize my thoughts on each episode, since they can all apply to the whole show, making it short and sweet. Episode 5 is probably my favorite of the 7 so far. I like how it's different from the other episodes, where instead of it being one big adventure, it's a bunch of little ones in between. There's plenty of funny moments to go around, and it gave us the iconic intermission time segment. I'll probably make my own music bit with it down the line. Episode 6 is the most intense one so far. Besides the entertaining gun violence, the argument between Pomni and Jax was very deeply written, and it really set the tone for how dark this show can be. And episode 7 was definitely the most surprising one of the 3. It's hard to discuss without getting too deep into it, so I'll just say the ending is without a doubt one of the most unpredictable moments I saw on television. I don't know if that's a stretch, but still, I know pretty much the entire fandom was very surprised. Overall, The Amazing Digital Circus definitely deserves to be one of the most iconic forms of media in the world of animation. Once again, I seriously recommend you check it out if you haven't already. Even if the show is going to end in 2026, I'll still be very glad to give this indie property a watch. Also, for those wondering, Bubble is my favorite character. I love Gooseworks' voice for him. He is so funny and quotable, and I just love whenever he's on screen. And the fact he resembles a Chain Chomp and Boo from the Mario series has nothing to do with it, though you could consider that a plus. With that said, the only reason the show isn't ranked higher is because it really was only 3 half-hour episodes in 2025, while the top 3 shows are complete with multiple seasons, though put an asterisk on the second one. Let's wrap this ranking up and see what these last few fantastic TV shows are. Oh man, I am so glad I finally watched Kim Possible this year. A part of me felt like I wasn't gonna find it that interesting, mainly because it came out before I was born, but still, it seemed like a show that I would enjoy, so I watched every single episode over the summer, and was really satisfied with the entire series. The main reason this show fascinated me was because I learned a few years ago that the 4th season of Kim Possible was basically demanded by fans. The show was so popular that Disney fans sent dozens of letters and emails to Disney TVA, begging for the show to continue, and it did. Seeing a fandom come together like this not only shows how popular the TV series must be, but also how much the show clearly means to them. Plus, with how high the reception must have been and the number of fandoms I've been joining lately, I still had a huge feeling I would greatly enjoy the show, and I of course did. Back to Kim Possible though, I love how the show maintains a perfect balance of relatable teen high school vibes and cool action missions. Sometimes both scenarios are combined, and it leads to really creative and fun episodes to watch. The cast of characters also really make the show feel special and nostalgic. Kim is a very enjoyable protagonist, relatable when she's just a teenager, and so cool when she's being a spy. Ron is a very fun sidekick, and I just can't get enough of him and Kim's dynamic. Plus, like I'm sure with many viewers, I adore how they go from best friends to being in a relationship over the course of the series. It's so natural, and I just can't help but adore it. All the other characters are enjoyable too. Rufus is a great animal sidekick, Wade is a cool tech guy, and the many different villains throughout the show are memorable too, with Draken and Shigo being the obvious highlights. I also want to give special attention to Monique, For a lot of shows I watch, there's always that one character I wish was given way more screen time, and Monique definitely fills that role in Kim Possible for me. She just has this vibe that makes me always enjoy whenever she's on screen. I really like her. Back to the episodes, I don't think this show has a single episode I would consider poor or terrible. That's probably because the series doesn't break what I call the 100 episode curse. Basically, it's a conundrum I made up where if a show has more than 100 episodes, there's bound to be at least a few where a portion of the fandom considered to be really bad or terrible. Other shows that don't follow this made-up conundrum of mine include Avatar: The Last Airbender, Gravity Falls, and I'm sure there are at least a few more. I don't know if I'm the only one who points this out or feels this way about certain shows, I just felt it was worth mentioning. In addition, because I plan on watching every episode this year, I actually decided to rank them and put them all on a tier list. Most episodes were considered average, but I still enjoyed watching the whole show. If you ever want to see a video where I rank all episodes, make sure to subscribe, and I have a feeling it may happen in the later years. Overall, Kim Possible was really solid, and I'm sure I would have had so much nostalgia for it had I watched the show when I was young. Just don't watch the live action movie unless you're craving a bad movie. Honestly, between this show, the High School Musical trilogy, and Phineas and Ferb, I feel mostly confident in saying the 2000s are the era where Disney Channel peaked. Oh, and speaking of the latter... Yep, despite mentioning it multiple times throughout the video, Phineas and Ferb was already planned to reach near the top of this list. And I'm not just talking about the revival, by the way, I mean the whole show. Even though I've been a huge fan of the series my entire life, I don't think I've ever sat down and fully watched every single episode. So, as a way of not only building up hype for the revival, but also reliving one of my favorite childhood shows, that's exactly what I did, and it was so much fun. And like with Kim Possible, I put every episode on a tier list, so in the future if the channel becomes more popular, I'd be more than happy to do a complete episode ranking. Anyways, I'm just gonna give my thoughts on the revival, aka season 5 for this segment. Just know that all the positive stuff I say basically applies to the whole show. I was already very excited going in, but I was more impressed than I thought I was gonna be. Most episodes that do follow the PNF formula are still very creative, but there are quite a few that don't, which are just as enjoyable. Plus, I don't think Season 5 has a single episode I would call bad or unenjoyable. It hasn't been perfect though. I do agree with the fandom that Meet Me in St. Louis was a letdown despite how much I loved it on my first watch, but I still thought it was a fun episode. I think my personal favorite episode of Season 5 so far is Book Club. It was so funny on my first watch and I really need to watch it again. Another questionable thing I've seen about this season is that despite being a Phineas and Ferb revival, it doesn't feel like it focuses much on Phineas and Ferb. I am very glad the show is giving attention to its supporting characters, which is common for later seasons of other shows, but it did feel different compared to the original series. Like, Phineas and Ferb are obviously not the most in-depth protagonists, but with the show being named after them, you'd think their plots would be the main thing every episode. Plus, I've seen some people point out how it feels like they're just building things out of obligation and not to make the most of their summer vacation. It's not a huge complaint though, just something worth mentioning. Still, the animation is still very good, although I should do a comparison with the original series to see which I think is better. Every character is still extremely memorable, the jokes are super funny, and the songs are still creative and unique. Yeah, I don't know what else to say, man. It's Phineas and Ferb, one of the best and most rewatchable cartoons of all time. Whether it's the original series or the new revival, there's just plenty to go around for anyone to enjoy. It's extremely creative and fun to watch, I have so much nostalgia for it, it's definitely one of my favorite TV shows of all time, and by far my personal favorite on this list. But wait, if Phineas and Ferb is my personal favorite, what show is at the top of the ranking? Yeah, while Phineas and Ferb is definitely my personal favorite show on this ranking, besides The Loud House obviously, there is one other show that I think is even better. more so from a critical perspective. I had no plans at all in watching this show, but after quite enjoying the first episode, I opted to watch the entire series at the start of the year, making this the first new show I watched. And after watching every episode, not only was I put through more laughs, but I was also put through so many deep and realistic messages that are super difficult to explain for multiple reasons. And I truly believe I needed to see this show all the way through. And to reveal what this unknown series is, I'm just gonna play the entire intro. So, without further ado, here is the best new TV show I watched in 2025. It really is difficult to explain in just a few short words what an incredible masterpiece BoJack Horseman is. Heck, it's impossible because there is just so much to talk about. The adult animation, funny jokes, and storytelling are all one thing each, and I know for a fact I could be here for days talking about everything. So, even though this is the last and most important show on the ranking, I think for this segment, I just want to explain not only what I think the main meaning of the show is, but also how I think it ties to my life up until now. Near the end of 2025, I made a community post saying that it was a year with a lot of low lows, but I still think the good stuff outweighs the bad. Still, the hardest moments I've had to go through in not only 2025, but also my entire life have honestly had an effect on the person I am today. I still love who I am, but I wonder if things could have been even better if those bad moments never occurred. And when I was watching BoJack Horseman, I completely understood how hard life can be. The 5 main characters of Diane, Princess Carolyn, Todd, Mr. Peanut Butter, and of course, BoJack himself, each portray how unpredictable life can turn out, depending on an unlimited amount of variables. With that said, what do I think the main takeaway message of BoJack Horseman is? I think it can be summed up in just 5 words. Life is always worth living. Everyone's going to have moments in their lives where it just stinks and you can't help but be in a bad mood, but that doesn't mean life isn't good anymore. There's always going to be light at the end of the tunnel, and it's never worth giving up on it. The many characters in this show go through so many painful hardships, whether it be mental, dark, or traumatizing, but in the end, they were able to find some happiness and are still able to keep on living. Again, I really wish I could explain what a masterpiece this TV show is, but besides the fact we'd be here forever, I haven't seen the show in months, so it would be difficult figuring out what I should even say first. Still, this show is absolutely worth watching. Heck, I'd say it's mandatory. That's how impactful it can be. I'm really glad I watched the first episode as part of a college course I was taking, because if it wasn't for that, I probably wouldn't think the same way about life than I did before. I simply cannot express enough what a work of art this is. So, in the end, for portraying so many mature and serious themes, having a very complex but investing cast of characters, and most of all, being a realistic portrayal of how real life can be, but also reminding that it's always worth living, BoJack Horseman is my pick for the best new TV show I watched in 2025. But with that said, if I ever do a ranking of every Disney Channel animated show, Phineas and Ferb will take the top spot there, and it won't even be a contest. Just wanted to get that out there. And there you have it, every new TV show I saw in 2025 ranked worst to best. Like my previous rankings, it was fun to reflect on all the great series I watched this year, and I'm looking forward to rewatching most of them when I get the chance. As for how the video turned out, I shouldn't be too surprised at the length this time since it was getting noticeably longer after each segment. I know I've said it before, but I've really got to start finding ways to make these videos shorter, even if it's just coming up with short video ideas. I'll also make sure to make time to really work on videos and not rush out a personal deadline. That way I can feel motivated to work on them. I also have to admit that the quality, more specifically the script, could have been better. There were moments where I did feel like the video wasn't good when I could have put more effort in to make it better, and that was becoming more noticeable as I was getting closer to finishing the video. Plus, the fact I forgot one of the shows for this ranking definitely shows that there's plenty of room for improvement. Still, despite that, I'm getting more used to editing videos, and I have a good feeling I'll get better and better with each video. As long as I find time and don't rush myself, and hopefully get my hands on better equipment or resources, I'm sure I'll become a better editor in no time. With all that said, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Like my previous commentary videos, I understand if you didn't watch the whole thing, but hopefully you guys enjoyed at least a part of it. If you guys are a fan of any of the TV shows I talked about, then please consider subscribing to the channel. Like I've said multiple times before, I promise with your support, I'll work hard to greatly improve the quality of my videos, so it would mean a lot if you tagged along. If not, I'd still appreciate a like and a comment. As for next year's TV show ranking, besides talking about some of these shows again, I hope to watch even more shows, or at least squeeze in one live action show, even if it's just a Disney Channel sitcom. And most importantly, I'll be sure to take notes when I'm done watching each show, that way I'll have more clear things to say next time. Now, normally this is where I would end things, but before we do, I want to make a special announcement. Over the past few months, I learned that becoming a video editor is a lot harder and takes a lot more time than it looks. It might seem easy, but when you're actually doing it, it can be difficult and tricky at times. Despite how much time it took, I still put in all the effort, and I think it was worth it in the end. Why, you may ask? Because as I was working on the second half of the video, we managed to reach over 500 subscribers, a small milestone I did not think I would reach this soon. I don't know what the odds are of reaching 1,000 subscribers by the end of 2026, but regardless, I have a really good feeling from these facts that this channel can indeed become so much bigger down the line. So, what is this special announcement I mentioned not too long ago? Well, if you've seen the end of my hour-long No Such Luck video, you'll know that I originally wanted to end that video by revealing some video plans, but we were almost done with the year that there was no chance at all I can get them done in time. But since we now have plenty of time left to go in this new year, and I'm getting better at making YouTube videos, I'm feeling confident I can get at least a decent amount of videos done. So, without further ado, here are some video plans I hope to accomplish in 2026. I'm gonna work on some musical song rankings, and I think a good place to start would be the High School Musical movies. I alluded to making them in my movie ranking, so getting to discuss those songs sounds pretty fun. While I'd prefer ranking them in one video, I think instead I'll make 3 separate videos, one for each movie. That way, it gives me more videos to make and will hopefully improve my soon-to-be song ranking skills and analyses. Plus, the franchise is at its 20th anniversary this year, so I think it'll be a fun little celebration too. Oh, and you better believe I'm doing the same with K-pop Demon Hunters. I mean, that movie only has like 7 songs to talk about, so it should be easy and short ranking all of them, but still, I'm really looking forward to making that video. I've actually begun the scripts for another Loud House video where I completely rant on another episode. Again, if you've seen the end of my No Such Luck video, you can probably guess what the episode will be, but still, I hope to begin work on it real soon. We're also approaching the 10-year anniversary of the show premiering on Nickelodeon soon, so I'll probably do something special for that too. And if we're lucky, maybe seasons 9, 10, or 11 will finish airing this year, so I can work on another season ranking. I don't know, but either way, Loud House videos are definitely happening this year, so stay tuned for that. Similarly, I began scripts for different Total Drama videos, specifically the reboot, so I'm hoping I can get those out too. I feel like Total Drama is one of those shows where you can make dozens of videos on it, so I hope I get to talk about the show again real soon. Those are the current TV ideas I have in mind right now, but I also want to work on Nintendo videos too. I only have one idea in mind for Mario Kart World, and I don't have any commentary ideas right now, so I'll try and come up with any ideas in the future. Speaking of which, I actually finished recording every fighter's classic mode in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, so I should have all those uploaded by the end of the year. I don't know if I'll do something else for weekly uploads, but if I don't, it'll give me more time for commentary videos and other things, so I may not do something like that for a while. And as I've said multiple times before, I plan on making the same 3 big ranking videos by the end of 2026, and I already have some games, movies, and shows that will be a part of those lists. I will definitely make sure those videos are much shorter and have better script writing. Good thing I've already taken plenty of notes ahead of time. So yeah, I have a good feeling about the rest of the year, and I better end this video now so I can truly get all of this done. Once again everybody, thank you so much for watching, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys for whatever fun video I have in store next. Bye!